The Kid LAROI dropped off his second studio album and I think it sounds amazing. He continued to show off his range and versatility as an artist on this project by giving us some different sounding songs that you probably would not have expected. Some of those standout songs would be Maybe I'm Wrong, The Moment, Private, just all different types of vibes and genres. He worked with a lot of different producers across this whole project, which was so awesome to see. He still does give us that pop rap LAROI sound that we're used to on songs like Rather Be and Come Down, and that's the sound that I'm gonna be focusing on in this video. I've got two beats that I'm going to be breaking down for you that I think would fit this album perfectly, so let's jump into beat number one. The first sound that I started with in beat number one was a keyscape piano. It's this MKS20 E-Piano 2 Pop, which is a mouthful. Basically, it's just an E-piano, and I came up with this chord progression right here. We're in the key of D sharp minor right here, starting off with a D sharp minor ninth chord. We've got a 1, 4, 5, 6, 5 progression here, and then we duplicate that on this other side, just adding some little variations here and there. Like I pitched this G sharp that was up top in the 4th bar, down an octave in the 8th bar, and then we added these little embellishments right here just to transition well from section to section. But yeah, that's pretty much it, and this is what it sounds like. Within Keyscape, the effects I have on that is a reverb with like 50% wet and just a little bit of decay time, and then this EQ boosting up the bass a little bit and a lot of the treble. And then this Magic Switch plugin, which is a chorusy kind of plugin from Baby Audio, and then I turned it down to about like 60 something ish percent. And then this EQ right here rolling off lows at about 110. Not so much a hard cut, but just rolling them off. That way we don't get too much of the subby frequencies from the E-piano. Speaking of bass frequencies and low end, we've got the bass pattern next. This is also a sound from Keyscape. It is the Rhodes Piano Bass Smooth preset. This is what we've got for this pattern. This is a pretty simple bass pattern. We've got the root notes following the chord progression right here, and then we added different little notes here and there in each 4-bar section just to kind of change it up a little bit. And we also added these little rhythms here in the bass notes just to keep the bass from being one little long note playing. It gives the bass some movement and it makes the chord progression feel a little bit more lively. The next sound that I added was a vocal chop from Splice, and I'm going to let you guys listen to it without any effects. To help shape the vocal to fit with the chord progression and the bass sound that I already had, these are the effects that I put on it. I started with this NS1 plugin from Waves Audio. This kind of gets rid of a lot of the noise. There was so much reverb on this initial audio that I didn't really want, so I cranked this up a lot and it kind of helped tame the reverb a little bit. This auto-tune plugin right here, I'm not using the auto-tune itself, I'm just using the formant knob, which I turned up to 113. This kind of gives the voice a little bit of a different sound, which you'll hear when I play the affected audio. This telephone preset EQ with inside of Pro Q3, just cutting out a lot of the lows and a lot of the highs, and then just boosting up these high mid frequencies right here. And then this Fresh Air plugin boosting up a lot of the high end. I highly recommend this plugin. It's free. If you do a lot of vocal work or you put a lot of vocal chops in your melodies, definitely check this plugin out. So this is what the vocal chop sounds like with all of the effects that I added. And then the last thing that I added on this super simple sample was this perk loop right here. And then I put this effect rack preset that I always put on all of my perk loops called Perk Punch. It's just decapitator with this radiator amp taking out some treble and some bass. This Echo Boy that I don't really know what it does, but it makes it sound like very roomy and it just puts it in a different kind of space. And then Micro Shift, which is like a widener chorusy effect. And this is what that sounds like. All of those sounds put together gets me the full melody for beat number 1. What I did with this melody was I rendered it all to one sample, I stemmed it out, and I used the audio clips to make the full beat. This is what the full beat project looks like. As you can see, all of these sounds are audio. These are the drums down here, but I want to focus on the audio real quick. I took the loop, the sample, whatever you want to call it, the melody, and I pitched it up 500 cents, which is 5 semitones, and I changed the key from basically D sharp minor to G sharp minor. And then I also took the BPM from 86 to 78, which is just 156 double time, but it kind of helped fit the vibe of just making it sound more sampled and not just taking the melody that I made and throwing drums on that, if that makes sense. So this is what the melody sounds like now with it being pitched up 5 semitones and sped down, slowed down to 78 BPM. So now that I've got that out of the way, I can start breaking down these drums, starting off with this snare and this rim that I layered right here. As you can see, the main snare has a lot of accents in it, which is kind of helping drive the overall drum bounce. And then the rim that I layered underneath it is kind of just to accent these hits that are happening on 2 and 4, which are like the main hits, just to give the snare some more pop and attack. This hi-hat pattern I layered on top of that. It's a pretty simple 2-step hi-hat pattern with some rolls happening here and there. And then this open hat on top of it, as you can see, this note is longer than this note. There's a trick you can do with the envelope. If you turn everything down except for the hold, you can just play the audio of the length of the MIDI note. This is actually stopping when the snare hits, which sounds really good. And then for the kick in 808, we have my short and sweet kick on top of my Crossroads 808, which are some hard-hitting drums that are a part of my 1500 subs drum kit. If you're looking for hard-hitting sounding drums that aren't in anybody else's kit, go down in the link in my description. I promise you won't regret it. But yeah, this 808 is following the same root notes of the chord progression, obviously, even these little embellishments that we added in the bass line from earlier in the sample. And then the kick is following the rhythmic pattern of the 808 just to make it knock even harder. All of these drums put together sound like this. That's pretty much it for beat number 1. The main takeaway I would say from this beat is to not treat your melodies like the end-all be-all. Once you make a melody, you just have to add drums and that's it. Treat your melodies like a sample. Treat it like you found this record and you're gonna speed it up and pitch it down however you want and just manipulate it. It doesn't take much. I didn't even chop this one up, but yeah, that's all there is to it, and this is what it sounds like. Beat number 2, I used a sampling approach. I found an actual sample from Splice, and this is what it sounds like before I did anything to it. So for this, I actually didn't chop it up. I left it as is, but I know I pitched it up a ton. Yeah, 9 semitones, which is very high compared to the original key. For the effects, I started with this Tape Mellify plugin, which I use all the time, but if you haven't heard of it, it's a tape emulation plugin from Arturia. I left the drive up a little bit, giving it a compressed distortion character. This tone knob, I activated it and turned it up a lot. I left the flutter and the wow up, as well as the mechanics. This kind of gives it like a raw, like that wheel spinning right there. It kind of gives it that reel-to-reel sound that you would hear in an actual tape machine. And then this filter knob right here, I'm using a 28% low pass, which takes out some of the highs and just gives it an overall vintage sound to it. An EQ right under that, shelving out some of these high ends frequencies around 4K, just 6 dB, which is just turning them down, not taking them out completely. There's a difference there. This reverb underneath all of that at a 30% mix and a 1.3 second decay. And then this filter EQ right here, taking out a lot of the high ends that's automated to come in during the verse section, and then it stays off during the chorus section, just kind of changing up the vibe throughout the track. With it being pitched up 9 semitones and all of those effects on it, this is what the sample sounds like now. Underneath that sample, I went into Arturia's augmented string plugin and I got this upright bass, and I followed the bass notes of the sample just using this upright bass sound, and it sounds pretty well. This is what it sounds like. I actually duplicated that same pattern over to a strings preset in the Juno 6 plugin. It's the same exact thing. I just wanted to kind of thicken out and really over exaggerate that bass line sound from the sample because I really enjoyed hearing it. But this is what that synth sounds like. And then for the chorus section, just to bring everything together and just fill out the empty space left in the melody, I wanted to add a pad sound. So I grabbed this 80 synth pad from the Prophet 5 plugin, and I came up with these chords right here that complemented and fit well with the sample. All of those sounds put together give me the main melody that I use for beat number 2. To go over the drums really quickly because they're dumb simple, we've got this snare hitting on every third beat right here. We've got this 2-step hi-hat, a little bit of accents right here every 2 bars, I think, and then a couple rolls here and there. This open hat on top of that using the same long and short technique that I explained earlier in the first beat, just turning down everything except for the hold within the 1 shot of the envelope settings. And then this kick in 808 just punching through the mix. This 808 pattern is almost similar to the string bass that I was using earlier. I just took out some of the embellishments up top. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the drums, and they sound like this. One thing really quick before I let you guys listen to the final beat, I have a few different automations going on throughout the arrangement, and I just kind of want to talk to you about them really quickly. This one's labeled bass EQ. I routed all of these sounds to a single melody track right here, and this EQ is cutting out all the bass frequencies from about 194, so about 200 hertz and below. I'm taking it all out, and I'm automating that to come in when the 808 is in. I do this so that the low end of the melody and the sample isn't distracting from the 808 cutting through the mix, which is what I want. Obviously, we want our drums to hit. So that's the bass EQ right here. For the sample filter, I mentioned it earlier, it's just the high-end filter coming in and out during the verse sections. As you can see, It's on right here because this is the verse section, and then I have it off for the chorus section just because it kind of makes it louder and also just brighter. It kind of just makes the beat sound very full when you want it to sound full. So I like bringing that in and out. And then for this 808 filter, I don't think I've ever done this before, but this 808 specifically from my 1500 subs drum kit has a lot of high end. I'll let you listen to it on its own. So this filter that I brought in right here is just kind of taming some of that high end within the 808 just because I didn't want it in the verse section. As we can tell, we took out the high end from the sample in the verse section, so I thought it would sound pretty weird if the 808 had all this high end information as well. So that's pretty much it for the 808 filter. It's just in and out during the verse section and then coming back in during the chorus section, just like the sample filter. Even though this looks like a lot, this is a super simple beat that I still think would sound amazing on the new LAROI album. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Let me know if you enjoyed that album. I appreciate y'all for watching this far, and here is beat number 2.